Welcome to our kitchen. Today we prepare ancient Sicilian cuboi, a recipe for bread written by Heraclides of Syracuse in the 4th century before the Common Era. We start with ingredients. We need flour, sourdough, cheese, olive oil, and dill seeds. We need the flour with salt, sourdough, and warm water and let it rise overnight. This bread is mentioned in Athenaeus de Hypnosophistes, one of the few surviving sources on ancient Greek food. This text is a massive work composed of 15 books on various subjects, set in the context of a banquet in Rome between the end of the 3rd century and the beginning of the 4th century. The guests are 30 experts in various disciplines, from medicine to philosophy and philology. The Hypnosophistes is particularly important because Athenaeus mentions and quotes sources that would otherwise be lost in the fields not only of culinary art, but also theater, music, philosophy, poetry, and many others. In the part of the book that we have used for today's recipe, Athenaeus briefly reports that, according to Heraclides, in his treatise on gastronomy, these cuboi, a Greek word that means cubes, are different from the ones you hold in your hand, meaning that they are not dice. These cuboi are in fact square bread rolls dressed with dill, cheese, and oil. Actually, Athenaeus mentions two authors called Heraclides, and both were authors of treatises on gastronomy, who lived in Syracuse probably around the 4th century before the Common Era. We flatten the dough in an oiled baking pan, cut it into squares, dress it with olive oil, grated cheese, and dill seeds, and let it rest for half an hour. Then we bake the bread in the oven for about 35 minutes. As we can see, there is no actual recipe, but we can recreate it using other ancient bread recipes. In any case, the choice of words probably means that the cuboi are simply small bread rolls, shaped as cubes, that are sprinkled with dill, cheese, and oil, probably before baking. This option seems more plausible than kneading these ingredients into the dough. But there are other possible interpretations, so you can make this bread as you like. Heraclides doesn't say whether to use fresh dill or dill seeds, but the seeds are the most commonly used in the preparation of historical bread. If you prefer, you can also add cheese, fresh dill, and olive oil to the cooked bread. For the cheese, we chose aged pecorino and grated it on the bread, but you can also use fresh cheese and mince it finely. We decided to cut the bread with the knife and use a rectangular baking pan, because it works particularly well for obtaining small cubes of bread, but there are no instructions in the text on how to obtain this shape. According to Pliny, sourdough and a piece of uncooked dough from the previous day were the most common leavening agents in the antiquity. But you can also use fermenting grape must, fresh or kneaded into cakes and then left to dry. You find the links to the methods to obtaining yeast in the antiquity in the description below. To learn more about the history of bread, read our new book, Early Italian Recipes, Cereals, Bread, Pasta, and Pies, which contains 114 recipes from the antiquity to the end of the Renaissance, an introduction to the history of cereals in Italy with an explanation of the basic methods and ingredients used in the recipes. This book is the second in the series Early Italian Recipes. but all the volumes are independent and can be read in any order. The first book is dedicated to vegetables, fruit, herbs, and flowers in historical cooking. To know more about ancient food, we recommend checking out our book, Ancient Roman Cooking, and our Patreon page, where you can find the translations of the recipes from Cato's De Agricultura, with some recipes for cereals, and De Reco Quinaria, as well as many other translations and several articles on historical food. A list of all our books on historical cooking, along with the links to buy us a beer and purchase our merchandise, is in the description below. These cuboi were delicious, with an intense aroma of cheese and dill, and especially good when eaten fresh from the oven. A bread full of Mediterranean flavors that takes us right back to the traditions of our ancestors. We paired the cuboi with pork stewed in wine, but they would also be delicious with cheese and olives or a vegetable dish, such as gourd or stuffed chard. You can find all the links in the description below. If you're interested in ancient foods and flavors, subscribe our channel and consider supporting us on Patreon.